We are here again from a trendy viral TikTok video of a woman expressing why she left the good guy she encountered because he was broke. And is she in the wrong for this? Let's check it out.
Tell him I got the juice.
For me, I really feel like if you want me, you're gonna show me that you want me. Any man that has wanted me showed me that they wanted me. They pursued me. They ain't allow me to not talk to them. They ain't really allowed me. You know what I'm saying? They was applying pressure. So if you really feeling me like
What
that,
was the
for real,
highest end goal out of these men that you said showed that they wanted you?
I'm gonna be honest. The man who taught me really for real what love looked like.
Okay, before she answers this, she's kind of been on a context of basically what she's labeling as getting her rocks off, coming in and establishing presence, those kinds of motionings. And she's like, man, she wants a guy who, if he really wants to pursue her, he's going to let it be known and he's going to pursue. And if she's really wanted, he's going to put in an effort. And so now we're kind of diving into where we're parked at in this interview regarding her experience in dating, just trying to figure out why is it that when she does encounter the guy who does these things, it doesn't pan out. Check out what she has to say.
He just got married not so long ago. But the reason why we didn't work out is because he was broke.
Interesting. Okay. And we're going to have some thoughts on this because there's a lot of plethora of perspectives to share towards this. If she was in the wrong, she was in the right. But let's keep listening to the story because I'm sure there's more.
And let me tell you something.
Well, his wife now is fine with that.
An ad? This is wild.
Let me tell y'all
So she got the
something.
ring.
There is a man out there who will worship the ground you walk on. When I say worship the ground you walked on, he worshiped the ground I walked on.
But
And he taught me patience. And he really taught me how to love me.
But-
Taught me how to cook.
but
I got to the point where I was like, I don't care if he was chasing a dream of being a musician. You want to be a singer in a boy group.
Okay. So he's patient, he's loving, taught her how to love, all these amazing qualities, right? And he's pursuing a dream. He's seemingly adding a lot of value, intrinsic value, I might add, to the relationship. Let's see where it kind of maybe veers off, I guess.
And I was supportive. I supported that everything. But I'm like, he had 2 kids. And I'm just like,
okay.
you do need to support yourself. Like, you need to make some type of money. He was getting like a $50, $100 allowance from his manager. And when she was mad, $50. You feel me? Like, I was like, you gotta drive a Pizza Hut at night. I don't care. Just
so is
make
he
some
still
money.
trying to chase this musician dream?
He just found the woman for him.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It
Yeah.
sounds like so. It sounds like she's gonna, regardless, she's gonna hold him down, and he's
Yeah.
probably worshiping the ground that she walks on, like he did with you.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this: would you rather? Okay, so it didn't work out financially wise. Everything else, if he had the
But-
money, would it have worked out?
Yes,
Okay.
it would have. And if I would have met him today, it would work out.
What's the difference?
The difference is I was broke too at the time. Like, I was barely making it by myself. And so I was like, I feel like I don't want a man in my house. And we both, like, they don't make my vagina wet. You feel me? Like, they don't turn me on.
Okay. Oh man. Okay. All right. We're gonna dive into it, man. And again, this is not in any way, shape, or form to attack her or anybody who stands with her in this position. I have a lot of questions, maybe more than what I'll present in this video, but a lot of questions that I want to ask. Is that the purpose of the connection of the relationship? Like you're kind of looking for stuff that's just gonna make you feel sensual, like, because that's what I'm hearing in this. And again, I'm more than willing to admit that I'm not hearing this correctly. But let me ask you this, man, like, aren't those seasons and spaces of life or relationships, like, don't those moments kind of define a lot? You learn a lot about people when struggle's involved, like how they're going to move forward and how they're going to navigate through those things. That you just learn a lot, yo. You learn a lot. So I'm asking, like, isn't a moment like that where a lot of the relationship can be defined? You learn a lot about each other and you learn that you're really down for each other, or are you just here for what you can gain out of it? And we'll dive into more of that later in the video. But I just think what she said there, I want you to keep hold of, because it gives us some level of point of reference for maybe what she's caring about more than anything. So let's keep listening just a little bit longer.
Okay, so now since you're pretty good for yourself,
okay,
financially, you're saying now it would have worked. So you're saying you wouldn't mind supporting him.
Now I could appreciate the love that he brings, but I still don't want him to be broke.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I just can't.
Okay, so and we're not, like, listen, hear me when I say this. I'm not mad at the perspective of, hey, I don't want you to be broke. Like, I think, again, as a man, I don't want to be in that financial position, right? Like I would love for my finances to be well and swell 24/7 around the clock. And there is a season where building, investing, creating, and having that kind of financial stability takes time, right? It takes time to sow. I've never seen seeds that are planted and sown that are prepared to reap fruit come back immediately. You water, you plant, you nurture, and over time, that's going to start showing. Just like in our lives, with the fruit in our lives and how we're transforming, renewing our minds, renewing our hearts, like there's so much that we're growing into, and that stuff takes time. I think it says a whole lot about somebody who is actually there for you, to where whether you have it or you don't, I see the vision, I see the plan, I see how it's coming to fruition and how you're striving to make this come to reality. And I can trust your decision making to remain, and remain not just because of the money you can have, and not remain just for material gain or material gain at all, but remain because of who you are. And we're going to get to kind of where this rides and where this falls in scripture, because of course that's our point of reference and everything. But let's listen to this last little bit.
But what if he said, but it's everything with him is still going to be the same? You have money now, but everything with him is still going to be the same.
You know what? Then maybe I lied.
I know you lied. Let's pull it out. Because this goes back to when you were saying that you couldn't be with not dominating over you.
I can't. And I don't want a man that's, you're right. I do not want a man that's not dominant. You know what? I go out into the world and I'm a mom and I carry the weight of the world on my shoulders every single day. I just want to come home and feel like I got a man that could just take that off of me. I want to be a woman. I don't want to be hard. I don't want to feel like, I got to be perfect. I just want to come home, be loved, be taken care of, and I'm going to give you the same in return.
Well, let's do this. Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of where we're going to park our thoughts here. And I think this is really good. Okay. So I think how she followed that is really interesting. And I think a lot of women express that same thought process. You have been independent, independent. Do you know that? Like, you've been doing that your whole life. And it's not that you want to, you just do it out of a place of survival, because you know you got to live, you know you got to make it, and you want to be put in a position, you want to be in a position with somebody where you can come home and your survival sensors, all that stuff, you can just turn all that off because you can trust that the guy that you're with has it covered. Here's a few points that I want to make. Number one, consider the other areas that this person is excelling in. I'm not telling you to ignore the financial positioning, but if we really believe that there's more to an individual than where they are financially, there has to be so much more about that person that we see the value they bring and what they have room to deposit into our lives that allows us to look at that and say, man, there's enough here that will eventually get to the financial positionings we're looking to have and share together. Like, what our biggest problem is that we don't really care enough so much anymore to build. And hear me before you go crazy. I know what you're thinking.
Like, y'all always asking us to build with you. Y'all always asking us to just stick with it, and you struggling and not making no moves and all this kind of things. Like,
hear me. There's a difference between building with someone and just maintaining with someone. Again, and I want to preface my comments, I'm a single guy, always coming to you from a biblical perspective. However, when you are building, you have a vision. And with this vision, even though it may not be as 1000% clear as you'd like it to be, you have a direction for your life, moving in your calling and purpose that God has given you and multiplying with what he's put in your hands. And know that this takes time to build, but you're surrounded by people who are pouring into you and investing into you. You coming in with a plan. You got some things in order, and you're making moves and strides day in and day out, being faithful to what's in front of you, honoring God in that process. Amazing. That is what it is. That is somebody that you can look at and say, ladies, to that guy, that's somebody that you can build with, because you have an understanding of where he's going, and based on where you're going and being able to see his map out, you're like, okay, now this makes sense. I have the capacity to support him where he's going, just like he's shown that he has the capacity to support you for where you're going. And neither of you have to fall back from what you have going on individually in order to come together. There's the first part, right? So that's a good thing, because that's something that you can actually build and cultivate together. That is completely different from somebody who is just freeloading. There is so much more to what a person ought to offer and can offer that honestly in a lot of ways speaks so much more volume than the money he makes. And because this is in his life, you can trust that the money will come and that time is necessary for that money to come. Let me give you an example biblically and scripturally what we're talking about, because we're kind of talking about what does it look like for a man to be considered a good man. Proverbs 18:22 says this: a good person leaves an inheritance for his grandchildren, but the wealth of a sinner is stored up for the righteous. Other versions also read a good man leaves an inheritance for his grandchildren. So of course, one of the first things that we travel to is money, finances, financial security for the future, and leaving that. And I do agree that that is a part of it, but recognize that that's not all of it, because what is more important than the monetization or wealth that you could leave is peace, transformational relationships and lives, love, understanding, wisdom, right? Like all these different intrinsic things that we could have the capacity to pass down by way of our obedience and discipleship to Christ, that actually will not just give them monetization or material gain in the now, but it's something that will travel and move forward for generations to come, something that has the capacity to renew their minds, renew their hearts, and create transformational relationships and experiences with others. Like that is the deeper understanding of what it means for a good man to leave an inheritance for his grandchildren. Because when we really think about what wealth looks like in scripture, it isn't always connected to the literal monetary gains or financial security, the number that you got in your bank. How many men do we know who are famous, that we know of, that have trended all over the place, that when they got that money, they started acting a little different? Not just they started acting brand new and acted like they didn't know where they came from and their roots. No, I'm talking like these dudes started losing their minds, losing their peace, clinging to this life and losing life at the same time. And it's not to say that money is evil. We know the root of it is the love of money, right? The love of money. So when money becomes your God, when you start serving that, and that is what's bringing you security, that's what's bringing you peace, we already have a problem. Again, it's not to say that you wanting financial security is a bad thing. That's something we all desire. We should all desire for ourselves. And it's not something that ought to be your God. And I don't really think that it should be something that is that big of a factor to determine you staying or committing to a relationship if the vision is clear, your understanding of the vision in which this guy is going, and you can trust his decision making to ultimately cultivate and create something amazing. Like, do you realize that in marriage, the vows read for richer or for poor, recognizing that there's a possibility you see both seasons in your marriage? Are you going to leave the marriage because the finances are no longer where you think they should be or where you hope for them to be? And I know we're not putting marital expectations on dating phases and as you're meeting people and encountering people, but I just think there's so much more, y'all. There's so much more that entails richness and wealth than the money and the number that's in your bank. And if that's what's giving you security, we've got a bigger problem to deal with. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 13 through 15 reads this: blessed is the one who has found wisdom and the one who obtains understanding, for her benefit is more profitable than silver and her gain is better than gold. She is more precious than rubies, and none of the things you desire can compare with her. I just want you to sit with this for a second. This might be a challenge, but I just want you to sit with this for a second. Do you really believe that wisdom is greater than financial gain earthly? Here's the kicker. If you do, then you will also recognize that by obtaining wisdom, it is impossible for you to not grow in financial gain. We don't gain wisdom as a means of gaining financial gain because wisdom surpasses that. When we really think about it, money, yes, it brings us a lot of freedom and availability. And at the same time, wisdom is just so much better than it because of the value we place on getting understanding, the value we have on living out transformational lives, having transformational relationships. And if I'm pursuing after wisdom, pursuing after the heart of God and walking it out, applying the wisdom that I gain, applying the knowledge that I learn, how am I going to remain in a space with no money? The problem is that we don't want to wait and we don't want to build. We don't want to cultivate some of that with people. We just expect people to come with it already prepared because of our circumstances and our situations and the consequences of our decisions. But I gotta tell you, man, you gotta be willing to be able to build. And to the men, man, when we're building, we're moving somewhere. It's not that we're stationary. It's not that we're remaining still. We're moving somewhere, and we're moving where God is calling us to. And that's why before you pursue anybody, be clear on these three things: your relationship with your creator, your relationship with your calling, and your relationship with your capacity. These three things. This is why we're so keen on maximizing singleness, because that's where you want to understand those things instead of trying to figure it out once you find somebody, and then you end up veering off of what God may actually want you to do and who God actually desires you to be, all because you're too busy trying to keep this person in your life who actually, if we knew our purpose and assignment, it actually may not even make sense. I don't blame the girl for wanting financial security. If we understood her story and how long she's been carrying a lot of the weight of just pressure and having to be independent, even though she doesn't want to, hey, we would come away with a lot of different perspectives. So this is not to cook on her. This is not to cook on anybody who could relate. What I'm challenging you with, though, is when it comes to finding somebody, there is so much more about them than the finances. And if finances is the only thing that's keeping you from committing, here's my question to you. Outside of the finances, what else about this guy do you see allows you to believe that this will not be your always? What does his circle look like? What is he moving in wisdom with? What's his plan and vision? Are you aware of it? Do you have enough clarity on it to actually make a decision? What capacity do you have for him and his vision and his dream for where you're going? Ladies, fellas, again, like what is your vision and dream? Do you have capacity to support that? Here's something else she mentions in the video too, maybe thinking more along the lines of, man, she wouldn't get back with him if she had the money and all those kinds of things. And so it's definitely something different. Listening to this reminds me of two things I've learned so far, again, from a very limited perspective of what I've seen women do and how they operate in situations like this, and what creates the hesitancy of the commitment to the guy who may not have the finances, but is the person that they need in their life, right? So one, maybe it's that they aren't too clear on the vision in order to make a decision. The vision hasn't been informed, and there's still some confusion in gray areas that they're trying to either maybe wait to play out, see how it goes, or they're trying to compute in order to make a proactive decision. Or two, there's a lot of hesitancy to say no because they feel as if maybe there's some added pressure. They just simply don't want to make the hard decision, cause offense, all those kinds of things. And to the men, man, specifically, this is kind of what I want to encourage you with, because it's been encouraged to me and it's been extremely helpful in my journey of just growing as a man in my singleness and preparing for what I'm looking forward to ahead. Listen, you want to be willing to let the girl know where you're going. And maybe it's not every mapped out detail, but give her enough to where she's able to make a decision and be able to think about how she can help, right? How she can help. I want you to catch this scripture with me, because I think this is really helpful too in some of our dissection of this video. Genesis 2:18 reads this: Lord God said, it is not good for man to be alone. I will make a companion for him who corresponds to him. In other words, I'll make him a suitable helper. Okay, I'll make him a suitable helper. This is a beautiful text, man, because in order for her to know how she can help, she's got to know what she's working with. Before Adam and Eve come together, Adam is given relationship with God. Adam is given work. Adam is given something to cultivate. Adam is given purpose. Adam is given identity. Adam is given all these things that Eve is not required to come bearing as a result of them being together. And so that's an important factor too that we have to deal with. But men, it is important, guys, fellas, man, as you're in your singleness, as you're maximizing your singleness currently, it is so important, again, that you look to cultivate your calling. You look to cultivate your assignment. What is God calling you to do? And build a relationship with that. Be faithful to hear, because that's going to serve you so much better. Any wise woman would want to know where you're going because she doesn't want to be misled. And so that's important that we know where we're going and we have enough information on it, understanding of it, not to sell her, not to really convince her to join us on the journey, but to just present it. Because sometimes we caught ourselves like trying to present certain stuff to people, and it doesn't work out. And we're trying to sell people on the value or calling we have in our lives. And anytime you find yourself creating sales pitches like that, it's possible that that person isn't supposed to be there, because what you're doing is causing that person to consider leaving where they're going to make room for you, or you potentially down the line leaving where you're supposed to be going because it's not working out. It's not happening quick enough. It's not, all these other externals. And we forget that where God is the safest place to be. And if we really trust that the kingdom is the kingdom, we will be taken care of no matter what, even when it comes to the people that are supposed to be in our lives. You got to be sure that you're willing to give her the vision, understand it, enough of it to let her be able to make the decision on whether or not it's something she can support and wants to get behind. And to the ladies, if that's not something that you want to support, my suggestion to you is to move on. If that's not something that you see yourself doing, please don't force yourself to be supportive or feel as if you are supposed to be there for that person because of how kind and loving they've been. You can appreciate that and say, you know what? I appreciate it. I see your vision. It's just not something that aligns with where I'm going. Because there's nothing worse than abandoning where you're supposed to be going in order to make room for somebody and thinking that that's going to work. Somebody's going to be compromising somewhere, and somebody's going to be really upset over time. That could potentially lead to a wreckage of a relationship. And that's just not something you want. Here's the last few thoughts I want to give on this, because there's a lot, and we can have conversations on this daily. But I don't believe that her perspective is completely something that I would agree with. And it's not to say that she's entitled or that she is a modern woman that expects all this from a man but brings nothing to the table. Like this isn't one of those kinds of conversations. Please don't catch that. And I think it's important to recognize that the right woman will care about financial security. I also believe that the right woman will care about so many other qualities about the man that she would want to see deposited in future children, in a future family, and seeing the value in those qualities that actually will create the capacity to make up for what is potentially lacking in the finances now, seeing how those things coming together along with the skill sets and along with all those things the man carries is going to allow those doors to be opened and them to create something together. And so it's not necessarily about her being entitled or she's thinking too much, she's doing too much. We just don't want to go to the extreme of focusing so much on the lack that we forget what's already here and the value that's already there. And if the value is there enough for you to say that even though he's not there yet in the finances, I can see how when all this comes together, just give it some time, because the bacon's got to bake. The ingredients have to come together to cook in the oven for an appropriate amount of time for the food to come out done, tasty and delicious. Let me just wait for a second and let's put it together. Let's throw some stuff together and let's come together to build together for the future that we really want. I think that is something that we need to consider more about, instead of just focusing so much on what that person doesn't have that they become the sum total of what they don't have. Now, therefore, they're no longer valid as a candidate. And to the men, I encourage you, man, to continue being faithful to where you are. Continue cultivating the right skills day in and day out, and not put yourself in a position where you are settling or becoming lazy with your finances. We want to steward them properly. We want to have a budget. We want to be held accountable for our spending, all those kinds of things that are going to help us lead in that space so God can trust us with more along the way and ultimately provide an amazing life for our families. Of course, we want to do that. But I promise you, when you find the right person, know that there's going to be seasons. Finances are cool. Both of y'all clicking. And there's some seasons where, hey, the finances aren't really all that right now, and you're struggling. But that's when you come together. That's not when you look at each other and look at the lack and say, I can go get the 20 somewhere else and abandon the 80 you already have. That is not healthy. And that isn't really how you're going to build a lasting relationship. Finances are important. I hear you. And so is your spiritual connection. So is your emotional connection. So is your mental connection. So is the capacity you guys have. So are the value systems you both carry that are foundational. And that is what will breathe room for you to build the life you ultimately want with that person. And then finally, I'll say this, just to wrap all this up. The last thing that you ought to ever do is abandon your assignment and calling in order to make room for somebody who does not see where they fit and where you're called to go. And it is important that you stick to the hand of God and you stick to his direction and not abandon him nor his plans for you in order to make room for somebody that you find really attractive and that whose company you really enjoy. And for some reason, you've come to this understanding and limiting belief that God can't do better than what you feel you're losing or you feel is getting away from you. Remain in your lane of the assignment that God has called you to, and God will open up doors for you, because faithfulness is how you scale up. Simply because she didn't see or trust in the vision doesn't mean that your vision is trash, terrible, and that you're an awful man or you bring nothing of value to anybody or any relationship. No, it just means that they don't see what maybe is needed to be seen in order to move forward. That is not something that you have to bend over backwards to prove. Do the best you can with helping her see where it is you're going. If she has questions, don't take offense to them, move in curiosity, and explain to her to the best of your abilities where you're going and what you got going on. Also be willing to respect her decision based on what she sees and the information she gets on whether or not she wants to stick around, stay, and sees a future with you in that vision, or she moves forward. Be gracious and be understanding. We got too many men out here who are just quick to being offended and wanting to blow up on everybody who doesn't agree with them or doesn't want to support them and what they've got going on. Trust that God is going to put the right people in your circle for where you're going and who you're called to be, and continue pursuing his heart before you begin pursuing this person that you found over time. Because the real freedom that's found in doing so is being your authentic self and allowing the other person to choose, not forcing them to choose you by withholding vulnerability, honesty, and availability from this person. And know that regardless, upon reception or rejection, you are in the midst of experiencing God, because at the end of the day, the love of God presents a choice. And most of all, we are reminded of seeing all of us in and out, flaws and all, and reminded that God loves us unconditionally regardless.